Hello and welcome to this week's YouTube video. Every 4 weeks I do a Procreate video where I try and transfer my fine art painting skills to Procreate. This week I thought I'd show you how I painted this golden retriever. I really loved the very limited value range and the delicate colours of the reference photo. This one is all about the temperature shifts and the brushwork, so it is a good one to show as a demo if you want to have a go at this style of painting yourself. Before I show you the time-lapse video, let's have a look at the brushes I used. It is important to have a range of brushes that all make different marks, which will then enable you to paint any object. These are the ones I used: the wet acrylic, the turpentine, the stucco, 6B compressed, carbon stick, 6B pencil and the Derwent. This is a reference photo that I used. You can see I edited out the wall behind the dog but kept the overall colours. Let's now have a look at the video and I'll speak about the decisions I made as I go along. To make sure I get my drawing correct, I am going to draw around my reference photo on a separate layer and then place this at the top of my layers panel. I use this drawing as a guide to toggle on and off during the painting to check my drawing is on track. I've painted this on 3 layers, my background, then I started a new layer for my dog, and then a new one for the eye and just a bit of extra brushwork here and there. There's no real hard fast rule to when to start a layer, but there are a few factors to bear in mind. Firstly, do you like what you've done so far, and are you worried about losing it? If yes, err on the side of caution and start a new layer. Secondly, are your wet brushes causing the pixels to move around too much, and are you struggling to get the brushwork you want? If yes, then start a new layer. There will be times though when you want this wet brush effect and you need those pixels to move around, so you really need to understand what you are trying to achieve with your brushwork. Thirdly, are you getting into the important fine details? Here I had an eye, which is an important focal point of the painting, so I started a new layer. But I didn't start a new layer for the nose. I needed my pixels to stay put for the eye, but I wanted movement in my nose. Hopefully, asking yourself these questions will help you decide when to start new layers in your own work. When I start laying the strokes for the background, I am just concentrating on making some interesting marks. I'm even looking through all my Procreate brush sets and just trying to find a few random ones, just to see if they add anything. I really want it to look painterly. I'm switching between the wet acrylic and the turpentine brush. I'm making large strokes and I'm using very muted blues on this side of the colour picker and then more saturated blues over here. I start a new layer for my dog. I have selected a lighter orange and I'm using the wet acrylic on approximately 80% opacity. I have some obvious value and temperature blocks in this painting. This area here, which is warmer and darker, and this area here, which is cooler and lighter. I begin to block these in using the wet acrylic and the turpentine brush. Notice how loose this painting is at this stage. For this style of painting, it is very important to start loose and then refine your detail. If you start tight, it will be impossible to achieve those expressive strokes later on. Just keep checking your drawing is on track using your top layer. Then it's all about getting your value and temperature blocks correct. You'll notice I started to go darker around the neck area. If I show you the reference photo again, you'll see that there is quite a bit of fur detail here, and you'll see I have suggested it rather than try to paint every strand. If you attempt unnecessary detail, you will lose the looseness of the painting. It will become tight and have a different feel. To remove detail, try squinting at your photo. This will help you see your values more easily. I have used a variety of brushes on different transparencies to help me describe this area. I have used the wet acrylic, the turpentine, the carbon stick and the stucco. You can see how I lay the strokes in different directions, different transparencies and different sizes. It looks vigorous because it is. I have been very confident and decisive with my strokes. Move your hand action more like this than like this. How do I know if I should paint the detail? A good rule of thumb is if it is outside the area of interest, it is less important. I have also varied my temperatures too, so I have warmer orange areas and then cooler areas. That colour shift is really important for giving you that glossy coat. Notice in some areas I have pushed my lights into blue. Blue and orange are opposite colours. Laid together they will always complement each other. As I move on to the nose and the muzzle, this area is quite hard to describe because I need a certain amount of detail for it to make sense. I use my wet acrylic, 6B pencil and Derwent to help me with this. But then I need to destroy what I've done with a few choice strokes with the turpentine brush. It takes me a few attempts to get it right. I just keep undoing it until I get the effect I want. My nose is painted using the red browns. This muzzle area moves into yellows, oranges, reds and blues. Once I've destroyed that nose, I then have to build the strokes up again on that muzzle area without overdoing it. I use the wet acrylic and carbon stick to try and keep the softness you see in the final painting. Do not use any of the airbrushing or smudge tools. You need to get the softness from the brushes that I have listed in the introduction. It is hard and I am constantly adjusting my opacity and my brush size, but it is possible to do. You want to be able to see the brush strokes, but they need to be soft. The key here is to getting my values and temperatures correct because then the colours will blend almost seamlessly into each other. You'll notice at this point, I then have another go at the ear and neck. I am still on the same layer. You'll see how rough I am with those strokes, just building up my brushwork. Look at how scribbly they are. I use the wet acrylic. Then I destroy it with a turpentine brush in a warmer orange. Then I select a cooler yellow and switch to the stucco. I'm just building up my brushwork with different brushes and different temperatures. This variety gives me that glossy fur effect. I keep going with it until I like what I see. You'll notice that I have another go at that cheek area using the carbon stick. See how I've added some cool blues to this area here. Notice how you can really see it because it is laid next to warmer neutrals of yellow, orange and red. Remember, on the colour wheel, red is our warmest colour and blue is our coolest. As colours move away from red, they become cooler. So where I lay my yellow neutrals, they will still appear cooler if they are laid next to a red neutral. Yellow is here on the colour wheel, midway between blue and red. Everything is relative to what it is next to. Understanding this is important when dealing with areas that have a very narrow value range. Varying my temperatures in these whiter areas is just as important as varying them where the shifts are more obvious. Notice how I have pulled the colour of my dog's coat into my background areas. The area on the far side is much bluer. It then begins to shift and warm a little in this area here, and then it becomes much warmer for the dog's head. Pulling this colour into my background is really effective where I add blue highlights to suggest the edges of my dog's head. This gives me a really lovely colour shift of cool, warm, and it helps create the illusion of form because it suggests the light is bending around our head. I start a new layer for the eye and use the wet acrylic and carbon stick. As my eye is warm browns, I use dark values from my red, orange and violet colour picker for the outer edges. Remember, this white area here is mainly from my blue colour picker, so I need to shift my temperature warmer before going cooler again for the iris. Again, notice the shift from cool to warm to cool. Finally, I use my wet acrylic to pull my dog's head into the background. Because I have started a new layer, this pulling effect is quite limited. Had I done this on the previous layer, it would have destroyed a lot of what I'd done. This way, I now have a really lovely soft edge effect here. To recap then, use different brushes to give you different marks. Draw around your reference photo to help keep your drawing correct. Understanding how your brushes work will help you know when to start a new layer. The only way to understand your brushes is to experiment. Concentrate on making interesting brush strokes in your painting. Use a variety of brushes to do this. Block in your obvious values and temperatures first. Start loose and then refine. Don't bother painting unnecessary detail outside your area of interest. Suggest it with brushwork instead. Squint at your reference photo to help you edit it out. Understand the importance of using warm and cool temperatures and colour opposites. Use the colour wheel to help you. Don't be afraid to destroy edges. Use your wet brushes to do this. I hope you've enjoyed today's video and found it useful. Please like and subscribe if you can, and check out my website sarahhallidayart.com, where you will find examples of my work and also details of online classes that I run. Thank you for watching, and see you for the next one.